Welcome to FacingMelsMusic.com podcast, featuring some of the most heartwarming stories from musicians all around the world on FacingMelsMusic.com.
Okay, and a very warm welcome to Facing Mel's Music. This is Mel Golding, and I have a wonderful guest, a counsellor, a colleague, a lovely Soneakqua J. White. Welcome.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Where are you actually at the moment? Whereabouts in the
I'm
States are you?
in Cleveland, Ohio, in the U.S.
Oh, okay. What's the weather like over there?
It's pretty good right now. Actually, it's
Yeah?
very warm in the 80s.
Oh,
Mhm.
wow. Okay, you're probably similar to here at the moment because we've got a bit of a heat wave at the moment, and
Okay.
it's typical British, we always moan about the weather. We talk about the weather. We can't stand the weather, but then when we get the weather, we moan even more. We're
Yeah,
never happy.
that's how it goes because I just relocated here from Texas, which
Ah,
is much hotter.
yeah.
So I thought I was going to have a different experience, but it gets hot here too. So
Yeah. Do you have all the seasons, actually?
in
Have you been
Ohio,
there?
you do have the
Right.
seasons. In Texas, you don't. It's just hot, hotter,
Mm,
heat, just hot.
right. That's a lot to deal with, isn't it? Hot
Yeah.
all the time. That's it. You've got to be a
Yes.
lover of the heat to live there
Yes.
then. Okay. Well, it's going to be a really interesting chat today because obviously I'm a counsellor too, and
Yeah.
this is so exciting to be talking.
Yes.
Have I spoken to another qualified? You're a licensed counsellor,
Yes.
obviously. I think this might be the first time actually that I'm speaking with another
Wow.
fellow
Awesome.
counsellor. So I'm super duper excited.
Yes.
Um, just to say a little bit about you. So you are a mental strength strategist.
Yes.
This is so important, isn't it?
Yes.
And you coach influencers. So these people that you are, your clients basically,
Yes.
are influencing other people. So
Right.
you're supporting them in that. That's a very important role.
Yes, absolutely. Someone that's behind the scenes. What's important for me
Mm,
is being behind the scenes and doing the work off camera, out of
right.
the spotlight, so that nobody gets to see
Yeah.
all of the stuff that you really don't want
Mm.
everyone to see,
Well, it's this saying, isn't it? I mean, at the end of the day, we're all human, you
Yes.
know.
Yes.
So even the greatest coaches in the world, and they are still prone to breakdowns if they are
Yes.
not going to take care of their own mental health. Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah. So and also you have. How long have you been actually doing this? How long have you been
I've been
coaching?
doing this a shorter time. I'm a
Yeah.
licensed therapist, so I
Yeah.
started counseling
Yeah.
in 2009
Oh.
in my own practice.
Okay.
And then I started the coaching or the strategy in 2016.
Okay. Is this something that you stumbled across? Did you stumble on this path, or was this kind of mapped out from when you started counseling? I'm just curious.
I guess you could say I stumbled across it. I was
Yeah.
steered into it because I thought when someone first told me about coaching, I thought, well, I don't need to be a coach. I'm a therapist. So,
Yeah.
don't need to do that. But as I moved on and as
Mm,
certain clients started to come in, I
right.
felt like they were better served by coaching and strategy rather than therapy because not everybody needs counseling. Some people
Yeah.
need the support and the
Yes.
coaching and the push
Yeah.
more than the therapy. So that's kind of how the coaching and
Yeah.
strategy came about.
Isn't it interesting, and I get it a little bit blurred in my own mind because, I come from a counselling background and I
Yes.
started more or less the same time as you in
Yeah.
2009, which is funny. But when you're going into coaching, it's slightly different, isn't it? There is an
Yes.
element of counselling in there when needed because counselling is more about exploring, I guess, the past or the present issues.
Yes.
Past may be affecting the present issues. So that's really
Yes.
what that's about. But coaching is more, would you say it's more goal orientated and around career? I mean, what do you think about that?
Yes, it is definitely more goal and future oriented. So I think of
Mm,
counseling as bringing the past to current, and
right.
then coaching is as looking at current and trying to move you into your future.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and you're also doing some public speaking as well. You've done a little bit, haven't you?
Yeah, a little bit. I didn't
Yeah.
that kind of came about as well, just because of the work that I was doing with individuals, because speaking was not my normal thing that I said, hey, I want to be a speaker. But it just kind of came with the territory. Once people know
Yeah.
what you do, then they ask you to come and talk. So
Was it something easy for you to do? I mean, I don't know what kind of a character you are. When I watch your videos, you look confident. You looked. I see a bright light come from your soul. I think this is a lovely person who is here to help the world,
yeah.
and absolutely lovely. Did it come naturally to speak to an audience, or is this something you had to
I
work on?
don't know that it did. I think my mom would tell me as a kid, I did it all the time with confidence and no struggle. And somewhere
Right.
I got scared and didn't want to be
Mm,
in front of people. And then it
right.
kind of come back, but I had to push myself into it and practice and just tell myself, hey, people need help. You have to get out there. So get
Yeah.
over your fear, however you need to get over it, and
Yeah.
push through. So it came
Right.
back. I think I was naturally a
Yeah.
person who could do it as a child. And I went
Yeah.
through a spell or a phase where no, I didn't want to. And then it came back.
But it is bizarre, isn't it? It's like
Mhm.
these inhibitions, and we kind of build up these conditions over time. So it's like if you look back to when you were a kid, I know
Mhm.
from my own experiences too,
Mhm.
there was just no fear at all.
Yeah.
It feels like fear is built over time. Like you go through this phase, and then you got to work it all out, and then try and get beyond it. I mean,
Mhm.
what do you think that fear is? Because I think a lot of people would resonate with that actually about that
Well,
fear.
and I think as I look back at the time where I was in that
Mm.
fear, I got very self conscious about the way that I looked and how
Ah,
people might perceive me, or if I said it wrong, or if I said something that sounded stupid or crazy, or I
yeah.
got really self conscious, and it took a
Mm,
hit at my self esteem and my self confidence, and I lost it, I guess, for a
yeah.
little bit, and I had
Yeah.
to regain that.
Right. Yeah. So you're someone who actually has lived through it,
Mhm.
basically,
Yeah.
and you had to take yourself to the other side to get through it. And do you help clients get through this kind of problem? Do you have many
Yes,
clients
and
that
a
you?
lot of
Right.
them, it's mostly with their gifting or what I would, or their calling, like what they're supposed to be doing. And most of them are creatives,
Yeah.
that they are supposed to be writing or singing or styling or something in the creative arts field. And
Mm,
something or someone started taking hits at their self esteem and they lost it. It got buried. It didn't
yeah.
die though, it
No.
just got buried. And so
Yeah.
for me to help them bring that out, they have to regain the confidence in no matter what anybody
Yeah.
says or thinks, this is important. What you have to offer is
Mm,
beautiful.
mm,
And let's do it.
And I guess, I mean, does self-doubt come into it as well
Oh, yeah.
yes.
Oh,
Right.
yeah. Well, and
Right.
I have to talk about, and not
Yeah.
in the terms of hallucinations or something like that, but taking
Mm,
the voices out of your head, what your mom said, what your
mm,
cousin said, what your whoever
mm,
said to you. If you
mm.
remove those words, what do you hear? And that's a different, sometimes it takes them a while to hear that
Yeah.
too, because then they say, I don't know. But
Yeah.
when you get back to what you heard as a child, there wasn't fear there. There
No.
was, I could do anything. I want to be a writer, a doctor,
Mm,
and a teacher, and
yeah.
when you can get someone back
Mm,
to that,
yes.
then you can get what's in them to come out.
Isn't that interesting? It is so
Mhm.
interesting, and it seems to happen with everybody,
Yeah,
basically.
I think
It seems
so.
to happen with everybody, and it's just bizarre, and so you deal with artists of all genres, because you mentioned some
Yes,
musicians. This is obviously my area, the singers as well, very
yes,
exciting, but
yes,
artists as in painters, paintings,
yes.
writers, and you know what I find really interesting about that, and I know from my own experience, is that this self confidence, this self esteem can just really lower massively,
Yeah.
drastically, with these people who are supposed to be portrayed as exhibitionists.
Yes. Yes.
It's a little bit of a contradictory area, that
It
it's
is.
but it can happen. What about the pressures and feeling pressure from having to deliver? Do you come across clients who feel under pressure to deliver or to
Yeah.
meet demands, for example?
Yeah, that's one of
Yeah,
probably the biggest issues. Whereas a creative,
yeah,
you create what you want, what you
mm,
feel, what comes out of you. And then if
mm,
you get into the big time, so to quote unquote, then
yeah,
you have producers or people who want you to do it this way or that way.
yeah,
Your creativity can take a
yes,
hit because
yeah,
that's not the way you would want to
yes,
do it. And so, yes, there becomes pressure.
yeah,
Then you have fans or followers who want those old songs or that the way
right,
you used to do it when you have evolved. So
yeah,
then
yeah.
there's that pressure. So there's a lot that comes
Yes.
with that. Yeah.
Do you know, it is absolutely, it's bizarre that you're saying this because I was thinking this the other day and I thought, why do I? Because I do it, I'm guilty of it. So I
Hmm.
can be free flowing writing music, starting to write a book, a blog, or whatever. And
Hmm.
the second that it's been picked apart, or I want to use the word criticized, but there has to be an element of being critical to get the best out of the
Yes.
scenario. It's necessary to have a producer, for example,
Yes.
but for some reason, it feels like a personal attack.
Yes.
Do you know
Yes,
what I
it
mean?
does. Yes, it does. Because it's like your
Yeah,
baby. If you
yeah,
created it,
yeah.
it's like something you put all of your energy into. And then
Yes,
for
yeah.
someone to say pretty much anything about it, it
Yes.
hurts.
Yeah. It's like, excuse me, who are you? Even though you may have sold millions of records, it doesn't matter.
Right.
It's like, you've could, but it's so true though. And it does,
Yes.
I don't know. So maybe there's something about that, about helping artists sort of change that mindset.
Yes.
And I think I had a chat with someone else about this, about the separation from being the artist and looking at it from another perspective, having an ability to see
Yes.
things from for example, a commercial perspective.
Yes. Yes.
Um, so is this something that you can help with as well? Is to kind of
Yes.
shift that mindset? Yeah.
Yes. Well, and first, what I always tell my folks is that create it the way you intended it first. And
Mm,
then think about, okay, if you're pitching it to someone, you're going to have to accept the way that this company, this organization, this
right.
whatever wants to have it because they are the professional in that arena. If that's a
Yeah. Yeah.
producer and you're not a producer, you're the artist,
Exactly.
then
Yeah.
you have to
Yeah.
understand where the producer is coming from. But I also tell them keep
Mm,
the keep what you created in its
yeah.
original form just for you.
Yeah. Right.
Reproduce it
Yes.
and then edit it the way
Mm,
someone else so you always have it the way
that's good.
you intentionally design it
Yeah.
because you can use it in a different
Yeah.
way
Yeah.
than what somebody else wants.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really, really useful. That's really good. I'm just trying to think of all the artists now. I mean, the thing is that it's something that never changes. It doesn't. I'm just reflecting new artists, young
Mhm.
musicians, okay,
Mhm.
who are very precious about what they're doing. Yeah, so you have
Mhm.
to be super, super sensitive, okay,
Yes.
and everything's got to be very, full of praise, and you're doing fantastic because they're building their confidence.
Yes.
But there's something about that actually doesn't change really. As you
Right.
develop as an artist, you're still keeping that inner child artist somewhere in you.
Yes. And I
So
think you have to almost.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
hmm yeah. I think it's. So the developing part is to try and shift the mindset or the way to see it. Would you say that that's what
Yes.
it is?
Yes, yes, and
Right.
you can
Yeah.
train yourself or be trained to do that. Like I said, keep it your original. So that's how you wanted it. But then going into shifting your mindset into, okay, now I want to sell it or whatever it is that you're wanting to do with it,
Yeah.
reproduce it or whatever.
Yeah.
So take the critiques and I'll
Yes.
say go away from using criticism
Yeah.
because it gives your mind negative. It all
Yes.
already tells you if it's a criticism, it is negative. But a
Mm.
critique could
Excellent.
be,
Yeah.
it's almost the same thing, but
Yeah.
because your mind will say, oh, that's a prettier word. So when they
Mm.
tell me something, I could take it or leave it, or I could make an adjustment to get
Yes.
out of it what I want. So now you go into
Mm.
the mindset of a give and take. If you want to sell your product or whatever it is, you
Yeah.
want to earn money for your
Yeah.
living, then they're giving you what you want. So now you can give them what they want. And then we go
Mm.
into what is a compromise, because a lot of times we take compromise as a concession. A concession meaning you conceded, you gave it all away. You just gave up, you gave in the top towel, whatever. A
Right.
compromise is I see a little bit of what I wanted, you get a little bit of what you wanted, and we do this back and forth until we're
Mm.
both pleased. We both see at least something
Mm.
we wanted in the
Mm.
compromise, and now we can both live with that.
Yeah, and it's and I suppose that's why it's really important to have a goal focused scenario when you're doing sessions with clients. What
Yes.
do you want to achieve out of this? Forget your arts for a minute, forget everything. What is it you
Mhm.
want to achieve?
Yes.
So you're working towards that goal. And if it is to sell more, let's say records, sell more songs, some of this, okay, so to achieve that, what, and you backtrack. So
Yes.
you're backtracking it to a point of where you need to be now. And
Yes.
that's where the change has to take place. So, but there has to be flexibility in that thinking.
Yes, there absolutely. But there comes a
Mm,
point now where
mm,
if it comes to where you're getting to the point where you have to concede and totally give up your art,
yeah,
if you have a choice of backing out.
yes,
Like I always want people
yeah,
to know that if it gets to a point where you're just unhappy with what's happening,
yeah.
you have the choice and the right to back out.
That's really important to note. So
Mhm.
yeah, they have that power over their own careers and over themselves
Yes.
and their art. But you did mention a word before, and I think it's really important when you're trying to mix your art with business, because
Mhm.
I've got a thing about art and business. They're two
Uh-huh.
so very different
Yes.
paths that need to work together, right?
Yes.
And it's that word compromise. Okay,
Yes.
so for example, I always believed. I remember chatting to producers years ago that you never really saw the true artist until the third, assuming it's a singer songwriter,
Mhm.
till about the third album. So the first album was kind of more to establish the market. So it was
Mhm.
more about business. Second,
Mhm.
you more about them. But by the time the third and the fourth, and but when you're a huge name, Whitney
Mhm.
Houston of
Yes.
the world,
Yes.
then you can do what you like. You know,
Yes.
it will sell. So there's this sequence, isn't there, that you have to go through.
Yes. Yes. And that
Right.
you're talking about compromise. Yes. So if
Yeah.
you can think of that as the long game, if you
Right.
want to be in the industry for the long game,
Yeah.
you have to play the
Yeah.
game.
Uh, I'm afraid there's no other way around it. Play the game,
Yes.
everybody. That's it. So
Yes.
it's a, but it's a fact, isn't it? You know, because I mean, do you think people? I can speak for me. I mean, do artists go into it because it's their calling, it's their love, it's their childhood love and passion, or do they see big bucks to be made out of it? Which one?
Some of them see the big bucks, and sometimes I will venture to say that that may not be the true artist.
Right.
That may be someone who has a talent
Yeah.
that can be molded into what the industry wants, and they might
Mm.
be perfectly okay with that
Yeah.
if their goal is simply the big bucks. A
Yeah.
true artist is the person you're going to see probably have more struggle, and
Mm.
but also maybe like you're saying that long game, that third or fourth album, if I can make it until
Mm.
that till I get to shine, then
Yes.
I can do it. So
Mm.
sometimes I will kind of separate in my mind. I may not even tell the client that I'm seeing this
Yeah.
versus what I would call a true
Mm.
artist versus a talent that's
Yes.
going for the bucks.
You see, I really, I've given this so much thought. I've come across artists, potential artists who have wanted to get in it for the fame and the fortune.
Mm-hmm.
But you see, it just doesn't work like that, and
Yeah.
I mean, particularly young people, I'm talking like 13, 14, very
Yeah.
young,
Yeah.
um, when I got into it, and other artists that I know are real artists, I was about 2 years old. I don't think I was thinking of money at that point. I don't think so, and singing and playing. And I mean, I'm using music, but this can be also art as well. My mother is an artist.
Mm-hmm.
She's never made a penny out of her art. Never,
Wow.
ever, ever. Right. And that's a true artist,
Yes.
a true artist struggles and has
Yes.
painful lives, and they pour it into their art, and whether it's music or a painting, um, it's only when that talent is recognized later. For example, I mean, I'm talking in the old days when you were picked up by producers and yeah,
Yeah.
you're going to go far, and
Yes.
and all of this stuff. But of course, now we have social media.
Yes.
What are your thoughts about social media? Have you encountered any kind of issues with social media and your clients having difficulties with the platform of social media?
Difficulties, yes, in that
Right.
it just gives them a bigger following of people that could criticize,
Oh,
and more criticism.
right.
Just thinking
Mm,
about when we were in school and there was no social media. If you got bullied at school, you went home and you were safe. Now
yeah.
with social media, it doesn't turn off unless you turn it off. So I
Right.
have to have clients take a break from
Right.
social media and
Yeah.
censor sometimes how much of themselves they put there, especially when it's the true artist, the one that is
Mm.
very hurt by anything.
Comment. Yeah.
So yeah, so I have to sometimes censor, to ask them to censor what they are allowing out there until at least they're comfortable with what they have produced.
Right.
But yeah, social media
Mm.
it can be a good thing to build
Oh
a
yeah.
following. It can
Hmm.
be great, or it could be the worst thing in the world for a week
I
or
know.
so.
You see, I think you and I, we are looking at the risk factors,
Yes,
okay? And I know I'm looking at that protection element, protecting artists, because I just
yes.
know I've done a lot of research on it. My favorite artist in the world, like Michael Jackson, was my favorite
Yes,
artist. God, I
yes.
love that man.
That is
And
his coach. No one will ever be better, I'm convinced, than Michael
well,
Jackson.
no, no way, no way. He's my idol. I actually model my voice on him quite a lot, so I
Yes.
sound quite a lot
Oh
like him.
my gosh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
we're
Um,
soulmates.
Between him and Whitney Houston, them two,
Uh-huh.
them
Yes,
two, they are great. But look at what he had to go through in
yes,
life, okay? And he got
yes,
pretty messed up.
yes.
And I know that my gut feeling, I just wish I could have been around to counsel him. Actually,
Yes, that is
that's
what I say.
oh
Now he was one, he
yeah,
was probably the only one that I
mm,
probably would not have been able to counsel because I would have
yeah,
been starry eyed.
yeah,
But
yeah,
anybody else, I
yeah,
take on that knowing that it's a person
yeah.
behind the stage. Like
Oh
you
yes,
see this
mm,
great artist, this great
yes,
performer, but off
exactly.
stage, off camera, this is
Yeah,
a person, a
yeah.
normal person who is
Yeah.
struggling.
Yeah, I know. I remember I was obsessed with him at one time when I was growing up. I was about 13, 14, and my father got so annoyed with me because
Uh-huh.
he wanted me to listen to other artists like Tina Turner. I mean, there were so many great artists at the time, Aretha
Yes.
Franklin, and I know he picked up the cassette tape and threw it off the balcony.
Oh,
And oh, well, don't worry, I picked it up and it still worked all right. But he says, he says, Melanie, he says, he's just normal like you and me. He walks around in his pajamas all day at home. That's what he does in his PJs. He doesn't walk around in his leather outfit
no.
with the
Right.
boots and the buckles at home and goes and does the cooking in that outfit. And I was,
Right.
and that was, it was, it stuck with me. Obviously, this is years later,
Yeah.
so I still remember that. I think I
Yes.
must have been traumatized by that. But anyway,
Oh gosh.
but it's so true. I'm just basically, reinforcing what you're saying. These are
Yeah.
people.
Yes.
These great people have gifts, they have talents,
Yes.
but they are still human beings who can break down and are prone actually to
Yes.
breaking down under so much pressure.
Yeah.
Are you dealing more with, I mean, you talk about, I know you can't really speak about clients because it's a
Right.
confidentiality thing.
Yes.
Of course, I understand that. But you deal with influencers as well. Are you dealing with
Yes.
other people who are, for example, other coaches as well? I mean, do you
Um,
help
the more
or
the
arts?
the biggest group are the artists. The
Okay.
next biggest group are ministers.
Oh,
Um, yes.
okay.
And then some athletes, sprinkled in, but my two biggest groups are creative artists and ministers. And
Wow.
when you think about, I think about them in the same way like mega preachers, like who
Right.
have these huge platforms, who have these huge congregations that
Wow.
they're responsible for,
Yeah.
spiritually. And
Yes.
then they have to come off the pulpit and they're a regular person. They're not always that preacher that you see that spreads
Mm.
the word or whatever they're doing in
Yeah.
ministry. They
Mm.
are people who struggle as well. And
Of
I tell
course.
people all the time, just because you believe in God and you have a
Yeah.
faith does not make you exempt from, we live in this world, so it
Yes.
doesn't make you exempt from problems. But sometimes we look at those people the
Yeah.
same way we look at an artist.
Yeah.
Like they have no struggle, they have no problems, they this or that. And so that's my second biggest group of people, influencers. And I call them
Mm.
influencers because they are.
Yes.
Um,
Hugely. Yeah.
so, yeah,
Yeah.
that's the second largest group of folks that I coach.
It's really interesting because I mean, I'm a spiritual person, very spiritual,
Mhm,
and I do, believe in God, and I
mhm.
do follow that, follow the Christian faith.
Yes,
There's something about being, as you were saying that, I was just thinking about being compared to God or being seen as a God.
yes,
And I think as you're speaking about this and the position they're in, it's almost like the people are looking up to them like they are a god.
yes, yes. And
Right.
they can't fall. They
Yeah.
can't mess up. And then if you're
Yeah.
looking at them as God instead of God, then
Mm.
you stumble. And
Yes.
so that's why I want to work with
Yeah.
ministers so that they are aware that you have to,
Yeah.
get yourself whatever help
Yeah.
you need, because there are people who are looking up to you, and it's fine for them to look up to you, but you have
Mm.
to be aware and speak from the pulpit that you are not God. You are
Yeah.
a person who
Mm.
has struggles. And I want to take to the church,
Mm.
especially, that mental health
Yeah.
and faith are not mutually exclusive.
Hmm.
It's you don't distrust God
Yeah.
because you seek counseling. And a
Mm.
lot of people
Ah,
feel that way, that if you
right.
go and talk to someone, then
Mm.
you're not trusting God. And that isn't true.
Ah, that is very interesting. This
Hmm.
trust, this I wonder why that is. It feels almost like it's a guilt. Does
Yeah,
guilt come into it? Guilt.
yeah, because you feel shamed because
Right.
you feel like God is everything, and
Yeah.
He is, but God also put people in
Mm.
place to be His representatives in
Absolutely.
the earth. So even if
Yes.
you see your pastor
Mm.
or minister or whoever as His representative, he or she is still not God.
No, you're a channel. Actually, you're a
Yes,
channel, and
yes,
I do feel that you're almost chosen. Actually, there is an element of that. I think that anyway,
yes,
but I actually think some performing artists are like this as well. But they're just channeling through music, and they're
yes,
channeling through the stage performances, and
yes,
then. Because messages of good, how to be good, because this is all connected. This is the
yes,
basis of everything, is how to be good and how to live with one another. And it's
yes,
about networking and creating a great connection between people globally, is what I believe in.
yes,
Um,
absolutely.
so it's kind of like you're passing it on, you're passing it forward, aren't you? When you're
Yes,
preaching, you are passing messages forwards, and you're teaching in a certain way.
yes,
Musicians do it in another way. They do it through
yes,
music and repetition, chanting, because anything repetitive, like choruses, a chorus or a hook line, which
yes,
is why it's so important to have the right message at that time.
yes.
right has got to
Yes.
be, it's repetitive, so it goes in somehow, but it's all about giving good messages. Does this, do you come from a background of this like a religious background?
Yes,
Are you
I am a
connected?
follower of Christ. Yes, I'm a Christian.
Yeah,
Yes.
and are your families, any preachers in the family? I mean, do you come
No,
from?
not that
Oh, no.
I know of.
Okay, I imagine there might have been. Okay, that's interesting.
No, and
Okay. Yeah.
that is a part of just my faith and my walk and
Yeah,
my
good.
assignment. So I
Yes.
feel like what I'm doing with the coaching element is a
Yeah.
part of my purpose and my assignment to
Right.
strengthen those who are supposed to be out front. So I
Mm.
don't really ever see myself being on a huge stage, even though if that's what I'm
Yeah.
supposed to be, okay. But I
So
see
be it.
myself as the person that when
Yeah.
Michael Jackson walked off the stage, I was
Right.
there.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the person that I see myself as. So that's an assignment
Mm.
that I feel like God has given me.
Definitely. Definitely. I'm curious, Soneakqua, about what other roles or other identities you may have, and something that led up to that. I mean, do you feel this was your calling, like from a very young age, or were you into any other um, job roles, identities before you became a counsellor and have gone in this direction? What has led you to this point here?
I thought as a kid before I went to college that I was going to be a pediatrician. I wanted to be a baby doctor. And
Oh,
then I went to school and took my first psychology course, and everything immediately flipped. I think that that was supposed to be the direction that I was going in, but I wasn't listening to that because
yeah.
as a child, I was always this vault. People would tell me stuff and I could keep a secret. They could tell me anything and no
Ah,
one else
interesting.
would know.
Yeah.
So I think it was always supposed to be that way, but I didn't catch it until I took that first psychology course. And
Right.
then I went on and I thought that I was going to, have this big practice with lots of counselors underneath me. And then in 2016, God started to shift it
Okay.
into the strategy and coaching because all of a sudden I started getting all of these creatives and ministers coming in, and it was not something that I marketed for. I
Wow.
wasn't putting myself out there as any of that. I was doing general stuff, anxiety, depression,
Yeah.
grief. So
Yeah.
that's how people would present. They
Mm.
presented with the anxiety, depression, grief, trauma.
Yep.
About the third session in, I would discover the gift. And
Mm.
so I had to ask God, okay, you're sending these people to me and I don't know why.
Yeah.
And he said to me, because you're one of them. I had started calling them undercover artists
Ah.
because their gifts were buried. And so I was saying
Ah.
undercover. And I said, I love these people, but who are they, God? Why do you keep sending them? He told me, because I was one. I was a little shocked, but the truth was, I had written a book that nobody had seen. I was
Okay.
embarrassed because I didn't think it was good enough. And
Okay.
so nobody had seen it. And he said, if you're going to push these folks to put their gifts out there, then you have to do it too.
Mm.
That's
Yes.
when I published my first book in 2017.
And what's that called?
It's called A Time to Heal.
Ah, I was going to come to that actually. I was going to come to that. What a beautiful story. And it's really funny. You talk about your calling.
Mhm.
It's like it takes time it can take time to find your calling, can't it? And you think
Yeah,
it's one thing. I mean, I thought my calling was to be rich and famous and a great singer. That's
yeah,
it. But no, apparently not. So, God, whatever, the universe, just kind of redirects you to where you should be, and it's all about the interaction with people who come along,
yes,
just as much as who comes into your life, just as much as who goes out of your life as well,
yes,
because
yes,
that's filtering, all right? And
yes,
s- and sometimes you don't have anything to do with that; it just happens,
yeah,
and. But it's about having faith and trust in that, on that journey, isn't it? Don't you think?
yeah.
And to really
Yeah, to be
trust
on
that,
your path.
to be on the
Because
right
when
path.
you realize the path,
Yeah,
you just stay on the path no matter
yeah,
how it veers,
yes,
you stay
yes,
on the path. And
Yeah.
so I didn't, I realized now that I needed the training in
Right.
psychology and
Yeah.
counseling
Yeah.
so that I would have the credential to
Yes. To back
do
up.
what I'm
Yeah.
doing so that people would
Yeah.
trust that I'm not going to hurt
Yes.
you,
Yes. Yes.
you know.
Yes.
And I think that's
Absolutely.
why he took
Yeah.
me the way that he did and
Yeah.
then shifted it.
Yeah. But you see, once you've done that, once you get
Mhm.
the, let's say, the degree, the diploma, the certificate,
Mhm.
whatever it is, the credentials, then
Mhm.
you can get right back on track. You
Yes.
can you can continue, you know what you're doing. And also you acquire all this wonderful knowledge. I mean,
Yeah.
what's your background actually? What's your orientation in counseling? Mine is humanistic, person-centered.
Yes, mine is definitely person
Okay.
centered and some CBT and solution focused. So sometimes I
Lovely.
throw a little bit of other things in, but person
Yeah.
centered is where I feel the most comfortable.
Oh, and it is, don't you think? I mean, when I look
Mhm.
at person-centered counselling, and I thought, what the therapist has to do is to create that wonderful environment which
Mhm.
creates the healing, which is unconditional positive regard,
Yes.
empathy,
Yes.
really empathic, and congruence, which is the realness, you being real.
Yes.
And they are supposed to be the growth promoting climate, the perfect growth promoting climate for change, for healing. So
Yeah.
sounds like you do the same thing.
Yeah, and it's not a cookie cutter because
Yeah.
it's not just you do it this way every single time because
No.
the person is
Yes.
guiding you.
Of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
Client led, always, always.
Yeah.
But it is very, very interesting. And you must have seen over the years some wonderful changes in your clients. I'm imagining that you have.
Yeah, absolutely. You
Yeah.
don't always get the testimonial, but
Yes.
sometimes you do where they do
Yeah.
come back. I just got something from a client, a younger client, where her
Right.
mom
Yeah.
texted me after a graduation and was like, she still talks about you. So I just wanted to send you a
Oh.
picture of her in her cap and gown because,
Oh.
I was just a part of her
Yeah.
journey where she was able to make it through college and she's an artist.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I started getting those people, like I said,
Oh.
before I even realized what was happening,
Yeah.
they were coming.
Yes, yeah. It feels so nice to know that you've had such a positive impact on artists,
Yeah,
um, and you've helped them. And what's really rewarding is to actually receive that acknowledgement, because
yeah,
I think as counselors we actually need to know. I think it's important that we need to know,
yeah,
not from an ego point of view at
right,
all,
right.
right? But just so that we know we are on track, or because
Yeah,
I think it helps us with our practice as well.
yeah, absolutely. Because
Yeah,
sometimes you're not
yeah.
sure.
No,
Sometimes you're going with it and you're hoping that you're
on the right track, of
yes.
course. Yeah,
But
yeah,
so it
yeah.
is good to have that confirmation sometimes that yes, that was you
I think
were in the
so.
right lane. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is it's very rewarding when you're looking at that. So tell me, let's go back to your books.
Uh-huh.
What was the book? You mentioned the book, A Time
A
to
time
Heal.
to heal. Yeah.
Oh, can you tell me about that book, and when you started to write it? What was going on in your life when you started to write it?
I started to write it in 2005. Like I mentioned, I didn't publish until 2017.
Oh,
So
don't worry, I understand that one.
I started writing in 2005 and I
Yeah,
finished probably about 2007. So it took me about 2 years to write it in its original form. And
yeah.
what was going on with me was that I was so angry. I
Oh,
admit that I was angry with my family
oh,
and some of the things that were going on in the family
right.
because it was just so draining and painful and I just wanted them to be different and I couldn't make them be different.
No.
And so what I did was I wrote a book. I fictionalized it, of course.
Oh,
But
yeah.
what I did was I wrote the story as if I and the family had encountered therapy and Jesus and what might have happened had we taken that path. And so basically
Mm.
for me in my book, I healed the family. And
Oh,
that's why I needed to write it. And it didn't end like I thought it would end because I think again God shifted it. because
Yeah.
I was writing angry at first, and it was just like a tell-all, and
Right.
then it shifted into
Yeah.
the healing process, and so that's how the final product of the book came out.
I'm going to have to get that book now. I'm
Yeah.
going to have to get it. I'm so going to get that book because it's really interesting. You talk about, we've talked about Jesus and God again. I mean, I keep revisiting this person-centered counseling and making a comparison because I read somewhere, was it Means and Thorn? When I find the book, I'll let you know and I'll send you a
Okay.
link to it.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's an atheist who is getting
Okay.
together with a priest, and they wrote this book together
Ah.
from a counseling perspective, and they
Whoa.
joined in the middle, right, with
Uh-huh.
person-centered counseling,
Okay.
and they agreed that Jesus Christ would have been the perfect person-centered counselor.
Wow.
Yeah,
I
isn't it
need to.
amazing? Yeah. I'm so going to send you that link.
That's awesome.
But it's awesome because if you think about the environments of this person-centered humanistic, that's what he represented. So even in
Yeah.
counseling, I still think we're doing his work through that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Do you
absolutely.
know what I'm saying? So it's really interesting. But you talk about a time to heal and about your family, and there's this saying over here. You can't choose your family. They say
Yeah.
you can't. I don't know if you got it over there, but you can choose
Yes.
your friends, but you can't choose your family.
Yes,
I,
we have
I,
that here too.
It's very true. I don't think I've ever met a family who's completely united on
Exactly.
every level, to be honest with you. There's
Yes.
always going to be problems there. But it sounds like you found a way of healing, a time to heal, through your writing
Yes.
because it
Absolutely.
because it was safe.
Yes. And you
And
know
the
what?
risk,
It was safe, but it was
yeah,
also a risk because then I had
yes.
to put myself
Oh,
in the place of an
mhm,
artist.
yeah.
So putting that out there,
Yeah.
and first of all, wondering if my family would read it and what would they think?
Yes, I
And
know.
then again, what would other people think?
Yeah.
You know, knowing that, because in every fiction there's a little bit of truth, right?
Oh, yeah, no, you always keep it close to the truth. Always. The best lies are close to the truth.
Right. So that was in that place
Yeah,
I became the artist. Before
right.
I published it, it
Mm,
was just me healing.
yes.
But once you hit that button
Oh, I
to
know, I've done it. I've done
it,
it.
you become the artist, and it's like, whoa.
Yeah,
That was when I first realized that I actually struggled with anxiety.
that's interesting. That's very interesting.
Mhm.
You hit that publish button like I did, and
Yeah.
that's the moment. That's it. There's no going back.
Yep.
That's it. It's out
Yeah.
there.
It's out there.
And so you went through the healing process through because you've got this you've called it, was it Soneakqua's Cathartic courses. Let's talk about your courses.
Yeah. So
Okay, I love
those
the
are,
cathartic emphasis on
yes.
art. Very clever.
Yes,
Excellent.
yes, yes, I'm glad
Brilliant.
you caught that.
Oh yeah, definitely. Tell me about it. Go on, tell me about your
So,
cathartic
of
courses.
course, I based it off of catharsis and
Right.
the deep emotional release. And
Yeah.
that is what I hope to give people anytime they encounter anything that I do, whether it's my YouTube, whether it's my
Yeah.
books, or whether it's the courses. So the courses are based on my books.
Okay.
And
Right.
so
Mhm.
I've made basically video versions of my books where
Wonderful.
then I ask you questions and take you through the processes and different things, but you can do it as a
Yeah.
self-paced video course.
Oh, lovely.
Hmm.
Lovely. Yeah. Okay. And there's several courses here. I'm just having a little look. Have you got 5? Is that right?
Yes.
You've got mummy issues.
Yes.
Mummy. Oh, tell me about mummy issues. I'm a mum, so tell me
Well, you
tell me
know,
about that.
here people are fine with talking about daddy
Yeah.
issues because
Mhm.
a lot of people grew up without their fathers, or there was a disturbance there, but
Yeah.
not a lot of people want to go into mommy issues because,
Mm.
like, here you're not supposed to say anything bad about your mom. So
Oh, very
even
brave.
though people have the issues with her, zip it up. They don't want to talk
Mm.
about it. So whenever I tell people you're in counseling now. This is not the time to zip up. You've reached out, so
Yeah.
let it out. So, what I came across was a lot of people who were struggling with the issues with their moms, specifically either not feeling like their mom liked them or loved them, or feeling like they weren't the favorite child, like their mom
Right.
had a favorite child and it wasn't them. So that's
Yeah.
where the mommy issues came from. I was like, well, I'm just going to put it out there. And a bigger part of it for me was that, I was talking about a time to heal.
Yeah.
One of my grandmothers was like the catalyst of that.
Okay.
She is the mommy that the issues came from, not my
Right.
own mom. It was the grandmother.
Yeah. Right.
And so I thought, though, that she was this anomaly and that nobody had another mother figure like her
Yeah.
ever until I started counseling. And I'm
Yeah.
going, oh my
Yeah.
gosh,
Yeah.
they're everywhere. So
Yes.
that is why basically I did the mommy issues.
That's brilliant. Brilliant. What I love is that you've named it and got it out there. And that's really brave, because
Yes.
it's like, that's what Facing Male's Music is supposed to be about. It's about talking about taboo subjects that people don't
Yes.
necessarily want to, it's going in between the subjects and getting right into the cracks of what
Yes.
the issue actually is,
Yes.
But it's very true what you're saying. And I've heard, gosh, I remember in my training, people talking about their mothers. They learned about who their mothers really were later in life, like in their 40s,
Yeah.
sometimes even their 50s.
Yeah.
And so you can grow up thinking, oh, this is who that person is. I mean, it works both sides, mothers and fathers and everybody. But you are absolutely right, because it's like we have, oh, no, we don't ever talk about the mother like that, the mother that is the golden, the shrine sort of thing.
Mhm.
But actually, I know people who've discovered that their mothers were quite narcissistic,
Yes.
and had a terrible effect on them without them even realizing until later they got into
Yeah.
therapy, and then it all came out,
Yes.
the discovery.
Yes.
So it's really important, and I'm just going to be really promoting what we do as counsellors, because it is important to actually look at our past experiences, because they impact your present. They impact your present.
Yes.
And they
Yes.
impact what you're doing and how. I read something else on your site. What was it about? Let me just see. Being free of issues before you influence.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
That's a big one. And
That's a
it's
big one.
not that everybody will always have things that come up. But what I want people to realize is that you being famous or rich or popular will not take away the fact that you're traumatized.
Yeah.
What you're going to do is take the trauma onto your platform, and then it's going to come out, and everybody is going to be privy to it.
Yeah.
So doing the work before you hit the spotlight is what I'm trying to get, especially up and coming influencers to understand. I will take you from the big stage as well. If you're already in the spotlight, hey, let's take a break and let's do some work, and then you come back. You know? Now, a lot of people don't want to hear that. They don't.
No, they don't.
So like you said, taboo. We talk about things that people do not want to hear and do not want to talk about. But as counselors and coaches, why would we hide things?
No way, Jose. No, it's not happening.
Right.
And at the end of the day, it's like I've had this. I just want to talk about the work. We don't need to look at the past. No, we really, absolutely, necessarily need to look at the past. Yes, because that's affecting the present, and it's affecting the way you're seeing the world and your projections as well, and how you're receiving everything. It's vitally, vitally important to actually tap into that. And that's why they say very often you go into therapy. When you go into a session, you might all be, oh, good morning, da 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 da. You come out feeling worse.
Yes.
Because
I always tell my clients that you're probably going to feel a little worse than you do before you feel better.
Yeah.
That just means you're working. You're working.
It's working because it's the process is working. And the great thing about that I tell clients also is that you have to feel rock bottom. You have to know what touch it and feel it inside, because then anything, only from that point, you can only go up.
Yeah.
That's it. You can only get better and move up from that point.
Yeah.
So, which is
And
why
to
I think,
not run from it. Like that's what a lot
yeah,
of
yeah,
influencers and other people too, you just keep running until you get
yeah,
caught, and you will get caught. And that's what I tell people too. There's no amount of running that you're gonna be able to do where you're not gonna get caught. You will. It's
yeah.
just a matter of, do you want to choose the time that you get caught, or do you want to just get caught?
Yes, off guard, basically, and definitely non-stage. But it has happened. It has
Yeah.
happened. It
Yeah.
has happened. And you see performing artists. I think did Mariah Carey have a breakdown years ago. You know, I think the stress got to her. Definitely Michael Jackson, we know all about.
Yeah.
But even going way back, and you know,
Yes.
what's her
Go
name,
way back
Judy
too.
Garland, and you know, all these
Yeah.
people. You know, hitting the bottle, alcoholism, okay,
Yeah. And all
drugs,
kinds of
and
drugs.
addiction,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And it's all, they're all coping mechanisms. They're all
Yes.
coping mechanisms. That's
Yes.
all they are. It's
Yeah.
just coping mechanisms,
Yeah.
which won't heal anything, of
Yeah.
course.
And I talk to my clients about coping strategies and
Yeah.
skills, because
Mm.
I talk to them about mechanisms and stuff. Sometimes you've done
Yeah.
it before you even realize you've done it, or
Yeah. Yeah.
you've learned. And are they positive, negative, or non-existent? Like, are
Yeah.
your coping strategies positive, negative, or non-existent? If they're
Yeah.
non-existent,
Mm.
you're operating off of mechanism. You're operating off
Yeah.
of things that you just do, and you don't even know what you're doing. So
Mm.
they're not necessarily
Yeah.
non-existent. You're just not controlling them.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it must, I was just thinking also the type of clientele that you're dealing with. These are kind of, they can be hot-headed people,
Yes.
um, and very fixed, and I know best, I'm the leader.
Yes.
It is
Yes.
very difficult to break that mentality down.
Yes. It
Don't you
is.
agree?
Yes, it is. And you have to,
Yeah,
I mean, it's kind of like
yeah.
one of my pastor would say, just keep coming.
Mm.
Something will drop, because I can't force you to do
Mm.
anything.
No.
But if you just keep coming, or if you just keep listening, or just keep reading,
Mm.
something will hit you to where you
Yeah,
decide you want to make the decision. For some
yeah,
of them, it's that rock bottom. For
yeah.
some of them, it's them passing out on stage
Oh,
in front of a live audience, and
uh,
now you have to.
I know.
So, and I'm telling my clients is,
Yeah,
I tell
yeah,
them to watch movies like Ray, or Aretha Franklin,
yeah.
or Elvis, or
That's
some
it.
of those movies where
Mm.
you literally see them fall out on
Yes.
stage,
Yeah,
or you
yeah,
see the background of their life. And I
yes,
tell them,
yes. Yeah.
you don't want to get there. I don't want to see
No,
another one of these stories.
no, 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 we
Please,
no.
let's work so that you
Yes.
don't
Yeah.
have to experience that. Experience is not always the best teacher. Learn
No.
from someone else's mistake.
It's also, it's getting them to kind of, I want to use the word high horse, you know, being on a high horse, I know
Yeah,
better, I'm up, and I can't be seen as stepping down and going to therapy because that makes me look weak.
yeah, yeah,
So it's kind of changing that mentality, because there's this real stigma attached to therapy. Well, if you're going to therapy, you must be weak. No, you're going to therapy because you're strong, because you made
yeah,
the right decision, and because you're clued up, and
yeah,
you've cottoned on. Actually, before I break down and go down that route, I just want to sort it out to go that route.
yeah.
It's a smart thing to do, but there's this real stigma still attached to it, isn't there?
Yeah. And that's
Mm.
one of the reasons why I also do coaching or mental
Yeah.
strength strategy. Because
Yes.
just the wording sometimes, if we
Absolutely.
say we're going to have a mental strength strategy session,
Yes.
they
Yeah.
feel more empowered to
Right.
say,
Okay.
okay, I'm going to come out of this
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, you see, that's
Yeah.
that psychology degree coming out,
Yeah.
Soneakqua.
You just
Yeah,
told my secret now.
that's what that is. It's all about the wording, you know. But at the end of the day, that's what it is. And
Yeah.
the thing is about therapy, it's not that you know better, although we are trained, obviously, to know
Yeah.
certain things.
Yeah.
It's to bounce ideas, to bounce off of someone else
Exactly.
in
Exactly.
in a neutral place where
Yeah.
there is absolutely no judgment and it's completely safe to do so.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
think that kind of needs to be, I don't know, maybe we should write a blog or something. We should write something on this to
Yeah.
kind of clarify what it is,
Yeah. Like your
um,
safe space.
your safe space,
Hmm.
because a lot of people won't go to therapy because they're embarrassed.
Yeah.
There's embarrassment around it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's a terrible shame. And I think, especially with artists, God love them. I've worked with many of them, but you've got the egos get in the way.
Yeah.
Egos. Oh my word! The egos.
Yes.
So we need to kind of address that as well. But tell me about one of your other books. You got Red Flag. Red Flag.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the red flag. There's a red flag going up in my head. So what
Yes.
what's
Yes.
that about? What's that one
That
about?
one was inspired by my old publisher, who was also a friend,
Yeah.
because of so many people missing the red flags and
Oh,
walking into relationships or situations where they got hurt.
okay.
And so, what I did in that book
Yeah.
is literally pointed out the red flags, so much so that this book is printed in color. And inside the book, I'm showing you a red flag.
Wow.
So, and I use scenarios, and I use all the types of abuse: mental,
Right.
emotional, verbal, physical, sexual, spiritual,
Oh, yes.
and even the abuse against yourself,
Yes.
self
Right.
mutilation. And
Mm.
so I give scenarios, and then I break down the scenarios with the red flags and let them know, if you hear anything like this is a red flag without a doubt. That's the first part of the book.
Okay.
And
Right.
then the second part of the book is about recognizing triggers.
Ah.
If you've already experienced the trauma, these are some triggers that you might experience, and it may indicate that you have not completely resolved or healed.
Okay.
I use the senses, the five
Right.
senses, as well as intuition, the gut
Right.
or the faith,
Yes.
if that's where you are, if you're a believer like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's kind of what that book is about.
Oh, that's very brave. Another brave book. All your books are very, very brave, but it's like the warning signs, really. Hence, red
Yes.
flags. Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned about abuse. I know a lot about that. All of them. It's just incredible. What people, how many people, the amount of people
Yeah.
that have gone through it.
Yeah.
All sorts of abuse, and but like you say, if you don't deal with it and you don't speak about it and you don't get this therapy for it and you don't speak to another person, you just carry it.
Yeah.
It will flag up later. It
Yeah.
will.
Yeah.
And in all sorts of other areas of your life, which is why I can't promote the importance of counselling enough, really.
Yeah.
um, you've also contributed. Now, I've heard of this. Is Chicken Soup for the Soul Angels?
Yeah.
What?
So, Chicken
Tell
Soup
me about
for the
that.
Soul, they have
Yeah,
a whole series of different books, and they're all like different topics. And so
really.
the one that I was got into was about in angel encounters. And
Oh,
so that is my little story within that particular Chicken Soup for the Soul book.
what was the story?
Well, as a kid, I think I was 17. My
Yeah,
friend and I'll tell it quickly. My
yeah,
friend and I went to a sporting event. It wasn't raining when we went in, but on the way out it was. So we didn't have umbrellas or anything. So what we did was took our jackets, put them up over our heads, and started running through the parking lot. So the
yeah.
cars are parked one way parallel, but the driving lane, is perpendicular. So
Right.
we were running through the cars, so we were running also through the driving lanes. And I had my jacket over my head, and I was
Mm.
running. I was a sprinter on the
Ah,
track team, so I was faster than my friend.
yeah.
So I'm running, and she sees the car because she's behind me, and
Oh,
she starts screaming.
oh
But
God.
I am running so fast that I cannot stop. So what happens is, I get to the edge, I see the car, but I cannot stop. But what happens is, I am literally up on my toes. The car passes right in front of my face. I swear it could have touched my eyelashes.
Oh my
And
word.
when the car passed, I literally fell into the spot where the car had just passed. So basically, I thought that she was holding me back. I thought she was holding me. When I fell and looked back, she was still 10
Way
feet
behind.
away from me.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
So I know that an
You had,
angel
yeah,
grabbed me
yeah,
and
yeah.
held me above that car
Oh,
and
wow.
then let
Yeah.
go.
That's amazing.
And I was,
Yeah,
so we did not talk, we did not tell our parents.
yeah,
We were, I
yeah.
mean, we were 17 years old. We
Well,
were in shock.
shock, of course. Yeah,
So we did not tell
yeah.
that story to anybody.
Wow.
The first
Wow.
time I told that story was in the book.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Again, there you go. There's that safe space again. Writing.
Mhm.
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
an amazing story. The encounters we have with angels. I mean, some people think, "Oh, yeah, right, angels," and people there are so. I know there are going to be some skeptics listening to this, but I'm a believer. Yeah, I'm
But I'm
definitely a
telling
believer.
you, I
Yeah,
know that I could not stop
yeah.
because I tried. I
Mm.
was I had too much momentum to stop.
But you had a force. You felt a force of a pull.
Yes, I thought it
Right.
was my friend.
Yeah,
I thought she held me
that's
and then
crazy. Yeah,
realized she was nowhere near me. So I
yeah.
don't care how anybody else explains it, but that
No,
is the only thing that could have happened.
because you would logically fall forward, wouldn't you?
Yes,
And it would have. But
you don't fall backwards, you
no,
fall
no,
forward. And I
especially
did
not on
fall forward.
tiptoes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I know. That's absolutely bizarre. Wow, that's amazing, amazing. So, I mean, just to wrap this up, I mean, I think I could talk to you for hours and hours
I
and hours, to be
know.
honest
We're
with
gonna
you.
do this
I'm
again.
having such a lovely time speaking with you. I do want to talk to you about something, but I'll wait till we've finished here. And
Okay.
so, what are you doing like now? Any future plans? I mean, where are you going with things? You've got to a certain point. Are you thinking about the future, or are you just concentrating in the present? What are you doing?
I am definitely thinking about the future because I'm getting more content. So I have a new book that will be out in August. That one
Wow.
is called Coaching the Called. And
Mm.
who I call the called are these specific groups of people. And there is a faith based element.
Mhm.
So, artists, ministers, athletes, and other influencers in a faith based manner, and basically preparing if you have all these followers, fans, and everything, where are you leading them? Could
Mm.
you not take a shift and lead them toward God?
Yeah.
If they would follow you off of a cliff, if
Mm.
they would do anything
Mm.
that you
Mm.
told them to do,
Yeah.
why not lead them there?
Yeah.
So
Wonderful.
that's the
Oh,
next book.
Soneakqua, you're a pure soul, you are. You're a pure soul. Soneakqua, thank you so much for coming on
Thank
the show.
you.
It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you, and I want you back.
Yes, I will
I
come
want you
back.
back.
Thank you so much.
That's
I
the Michael
know.
Jackson song. I want you back. God bless you.
God bless you too,
You
Mel.
take good care.